Story time of when I was set up in Jamaica in 2024. So a bit of a backstory is the guy that set me up, Peter Douglas, also known as Jesse Congo, known him for many years from when he first came to the UK. A lot of his friends and some of his family, they got deported in 2002, 2003, I believe. He was a DJ back then. He would always talk to me. I'd listen to his music. Like, they'd have decks out on the street. So I've always known him from way back in the day. But I left that area 15 years ago. I lost contact with everybody. I didn't talk to nobody. He then randomly messaged me on Facebook in probably 2021, 22, saying, "Hey, you still live in the area that I've moved to?" So I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, he does a few electrical jobs over here. We should link up for a drink, get to know each other again." I said, "Yeah, that's calm." So for a couple of years we was linking up, on and off. I'd go down, we'd get hotels, we'll go to the clubs, we'll have a drink, do you know what I mean? Got to know each other. There's not a bad word I could have said about it here. He always talks to me nice, treat me with respect. He did ask me if you've been travelling, what you've been doing with time that I've not seen you. So I said, "No, I've still not travelled, still not even left the UK." He was like, "What? You've still not left the UK?" I said, "No, still not got my passport at this point." And he's like, "Oh, no, you should definitely go out there and travel." And I was like, "Do you know what? I'm so desperate to go to Jamaica. It's always been the destination that I want to go to." And he's like, "You should do it." So he put the thought in my head that I could actually go to Jamaica, like my dream holiday. So I arranged childcare for my kids. I could only get childcare for 1 week. So I was travelling out to Jamaica by myself. At this point, he said that he's got business, he needs to sort out his house. But my passport was taking too long, so he went ahead and booked his ticket, and he flew out by himself. He was out there for, I think, three weeks in total before I went out there. And he said he kept video calling me when he was in Jamaica, messaging me, showing me around the hotel in Negril that he was staying in at the time. And he said, "Have you booked your flights?" I said, "No, not yet. I'm gonna book it soon." And when I did book it, I told him the dates, and he said the day that I fly to Jamaica is the day he flies back to the UK. I was like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Oh, who are you staying with?" So I said, "Well, I've got myself an Airbnb." And he said, "So you're just gonna be sleeping by yourself?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna go meet up with the kids' family, get to know them, but I've got my own Airbnb." And he said, "Jamaica's a dangerous place. You cannot be staying in Jamaica by yourself. Like, somebody like you will get unalived and nobody wouldn't even know where to look for you." So I started looking at it like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, Jamaica's a dangerous place. Like, you don't want to be here by yourself." He said, "I'll tell you what, if you ring up," he flew with TUI, I was flying with Virgin. He said, "If you ring up TUI and see if you can pay to extend my ticket, I'll stay here for an extra week and I'll look after you. I'll make sure you're okay. Like, I've got the car rental, I'll drive you around, I'll show you the authentic Jamaican side. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'll show you a real good time. I'll show you the whole of Jamaica." So I did just that. I rang up TUI, I asked about extending his ticket, he gave me all the details that I needed, and they said they don't extend tickets, but what I can do is pay £300 for a fresh ticket from Montego Bay to Birmingham, because he was flying back to Birmingham. So I did that. I paid £300. I extended his ticket. I showed him all the screenshots, and I said, "Right, now we're flying back on the same day, but obviously different flights." And he said, "Okay, that's fine." He picked me up from Montego Bay Airport. Everything was fine. First 2 days we stayed in a hotel in Oaktree. He took me to my kids' family where I wanted to go. He took me shopping. We went to a beach party on the third day, I believe it was. And then after the beach party, we went back to the hotel. And then the next day, that's when we went to his nephew's house in Clarendon. Again, everything was alright. I knew the nephew from when he was back in England. He was one of the guys who got deported in 2002, 2003. So we were talking about back in the days about how how I've been over the years and whatnot, and what he's been doing with himself. Obviously, he's got a whole family now in Jamaica. Like, he's got young kids as well, not just older kids. He's got young kids there. He's got a farm at the back of the house. The house has looked massive. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I said, I've never been to Jamaica before. I didn't know what to expect, but the house was really, really nice. Went to sleep. We didn't get to Camden until quite late. Went to sleep. The next morning, the nephew's daughter, so Jess's niece, walked in, And she's like, oh my God, so nice to meet you. She was bubbly, like, there was at no point did she not give me no eye contact. She was just really, really nice. I was helping her do school runs through Clarendon. I was dropping the girls off to school, picking them up with her. She then came to me and said, oh, where in England do you live? I told her. And she's like, oh, no way, my grandmother lives in that area. I was like, oh, really, whereabouts? And she's like, oh, I'm not too sure, but I'll ring her later and I'll let you know. So I was like, okay, didn't bat an eyelid, didn't think nothing of it. And then she said, I would really like it if you can take some of my grandmother's favourite bits back for her. I said, yeah, like what? And she said coffee, porridge, just a few of her little favourite things. And I didn't even question it. I said, yeah, sure. I then went to Maypen shopping centre. I see the girl buy the shopping. She picked it up, like paid for it. Nothing was dodgy. Nothing was dodgy. We got back in the car. We were driving back to the house in Clarendon, obviously where Jessie was waiting for me, because this was the day we was leaving Clarendon and we was going to spend the last 2 days together by ourselves in Negril. So we drove back to the house. Jessie jumped in the driver's seat because that's the car we were driving to get to Negril. We drove probably about 10 minutes down the road to the race course in Clarendon. He then made a phone call to Jessica, which is the niece, and said, bring the other car because I can't get on with this car. At that point there, that shopping bag would have been exchanged. I can't think of any other time that bag would have been exchanged, but either way, that shopping was exchanged. So for 2 days, our last 2 days in Negril couldn't have gone any better. It was an amazing experience. Negril was beautiful. Me and Jessie then on the last day, we drove to Montego Bay Airport. His flight was 3 hours before mine, so I said bye to him. He left me at the airport. He went off on the flight by himself. I got on the flight, everything was fine. I'm thinking the whole way to London of my next destination already, but that's how much fun I had. Got to London now. My passport weren't scanning. Like I said, I've never done this before. I'm just following what everyone else is doing. All I realised is that everyone's passport's letting them go through, mine's not. So I've called over matey and I was like, my passport's not scanning. So he's like, oh, don't worry, we'll do it manually. Took me to the desk bit. Well, they scanned my passport. A message would have came up on their system. She looked behind her, called matey from the nothing to declare part, and the guy said, have you got anything to declare? I said no. So at this point, 3 officers have followed me to the baggage area and said, oh, just let's wait for your baggage. So waiting for about 5 minutes now. My bag's come round. I said, oh, that case there's mine. So I've taken it off. I've taken it back to the desk. They've asked me again, anything to declare? No. So at this point, in my head, I'm thinking, I've got bush tea in my case. Like, I wonder if that just looks a bit dodgy on the scanning machines. They've opened up the case now. It was at that point where they brushed past the bush tea, didn't even bat an eyelid at the bush tea. So I'm thinking, oh, well, okay, so it's not the bush tea then. They then pointed to the coffee, pointed to the porridge, and said, what's that? So I'm like, well, it's coffee and it's porridge. Like, it says it there. And he then put a hole in. I think he put a hole in the porridge first. Pulled out what looked white, and said, "What's this?" So again, I said, "Well, I'm assuming it's porridge. Like, it's come out of the porridge bag." Within seconds, it's tested positive for cocaine. My whole body went numb. There was no emotion. There was no nothing. I was just. My words were, "What? No, it can't be right." They then did the same to the coffee, put a hole in the coffee. Straight away, as soon as that bag got pierced, I smelled the coffee instantly. I could see the coffee. I could also see white bits within that coffee. Again, tested positive for cocaine. This was probably about 10:30 in the morning now, on a Sunday morning. It tested positive. I was arrested there and then. And I was taken to Heathrow custody. They then, obviously, they put me in the cell. This probably by the time I got there, probably about 11:30. I wasn't interviewed until 6:30. Didn't leave no details out. Told them exactly about the whole trip, who I was with, where I went, what location, everything that I needed to say, I said. This was about 6:30. But as soon as the solicitor walked in before the interview, his first words to me were, "You're looking at time." I was like, for what? Like, I've clearly been set up. Like, what the hell? And he said, do you know what they found? I said, all I know is that the shopping's been tested positive for cocaine. His words were, 4.5 kilos of cocaine was found in your case. And at this point, I don't know what 4.5 kilos is. So I'm like I kind of started him, like, what? And then he told me the value of what that meant. And I was like, wow. Like, I was like, the whole thing just felt like a whole nightmare. My body was numb. I was in shock. Like, I was in disbelief because I could not believe Jesse would do something like this to me. They let me out on bail, I think 2:30 in the morning. I then got a taxi back to my area. I did get told, the night I should have been back, I got told there was a bald-headed guy walking up and down late at night outside my house. I'm assuming that was Jesse. Didn't think nothing of it. I didn't get told until the next day. About 2 days later now, my door knocked at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was already on the phone to somebody, and I didn't open the door because at this point, do you know what I mean, it's still raw. I'm scared, I'm shaking. The door's knocking at 2 in the morning. I've shouted through the letterbox, who's that? A young voice shouted back, Douglas. I was like, Douglas? He said, yeah, my dad's concerned. He's not heard from you. He's not seen you since you've been back from Jamaica. He's not, like, he just wants to make sure you're safe and make sure that you're okay. Like, he's worried. So I shouted back, where's your dad? He said in Northampton. At this point, I'm not believing this boy's his son. I'm assuming it's just one of his younger friends or whatever. I didn't believe, like, who he was. And now, about an hour later, Jesse then was at my door. So say 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, I've got this young boy and Jesse both at my door. Obviously, I've called the police. The second I heard the young boy's voice, I called the police. They did a circulation of the area, and so when the police came, they obviously did a circulation of the area. I couldn't see nobody, but they was obviously hiding somewhere because I think it was the next day or the day after, Jesse had messaged me on Facebook and said, I tried to talk to you, but you ran why, and why did you ring the police on me? So they was obviously watching when the police turned up to my house. So I think after this, I had a phone call with Jesse and I recorded the whole conversation where he's pleading his innocence. He's telling me that he can't believe that somebody would set me up like this and someone's got to get fucked up for it and blah, blah, blah. He's trying to say he weren't involved. He's trying to say the family weren't involved, although it was the same shopping that his niece bought. Which is why when the young girl's Torreya got set up in Jamaica in the same way by the same family, first I didn't see the young boy's picture. I just see obviously the 2 young girls that had been set up, and I was like, wow, like that's mad, like how they've done that. But then I see the boy's picture and I had floods of messages saying that that's Jesse's son, and I was like, no way. So after that got circulated and obviously her whole story got put out there was a voice note of the boy obviously pleading that he hadn't seen the girl or whatever. Well, the second I heard that boy's voice, I knew it was the young boy that came to my house 2 days after I landed back to the UK. So the whole family is definitely involved. Even now just talking about it, I'm literally shaking. Like, seeing the young girl's story has literally triggered my whole situation. Like, somebody's got to put a stop to these guys because there's going to be so many more people out there that are going to fall for it. And when people do say don't bring nothing back from Jamaica, that means nothing. Not a pen, not a sharpener, nothing. I didn't take that literally. When someone said to me don't bring nothing back from Jamaica, I thought they meant something dodgy. But at no point did I think something could go wrong with coffee and porridge. And it's definitely a hard lesson to learn. Don't trust no one.